All right.
More to discuss and
Yeah.
menstrual health in general. Um,
Sex and birth control go hand in hand.
really do. They mesh together so well. And like you were saying in the last segment, I think there is weight to once you get your period. What are my options as a woman and moving forward? And if I'm gonna practice safe sex, what are my options? Birth control is such an interesting.
Love it, live it.
Yeah, I had a friend. This is a true story. My friend in college prayed on her birth control every morning. When she would take it, she'd be like, "Please don't make an appointment. Take it." And I died every time. I know that's kind of making a very serious situation a little.
I love it.
But I thought it was funny. Like, she genuinely was like, "Thank you, Lord, for giving me this as a arsenal to practice safe sex," which is great.
What was the first form of birth control you used?
Yeah, great question. So I did do oral contraceptive first. I actually originally went on it for acne. So yeah, there's a lot of obviously hormones in general. You have to work with them. And a lot of times if you're having hormonal issues, whether this is the correct fix or not, sometimes doctors will prescribe birth control. It's one of the easiest ways for women to kind of stabilize sometimes their hormonal issues. So I was having hormonal acne. I was potentially going to go on Accutane. I was going into college, and they ask you before you go on Accutane anyway to get 2 forms of birth control. So my dermatologist was like, "Why don't we put you on birth control? And if it helps your skin, then you don't go on Accutane. And if it doesn't, then you go on Accutane and you already have your one method that you need," right? So I was like, okay. So, and my mom was great. Again, super easy and open, and was like, "You're going to college anyway. You're going to need it." I was like, "Mom." And so I went on birth control. I went on oral contraceptive. The caveat is, though, I went on 5 to find one that fit for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So my hormones are definitely difficult. I know plenty of friends, again, that one that preyed on birth control, she could take any birth control. She switched, I think, 3 times just because of what was free and what was available for her while we lived together, and never experienced any hormonal shifts. Like, great. Just her body was a champ with all birth controls. Mine, however, I had to take 5 different ones to find one that didn't make me emotionally hysterical, and one that didn't cause breakthrough bleeding most of the time. So so I tried out 5. I finally got on one that worked for me, and it did clear up my skin. And then I stayed on it for 5.5 years, around that, because I was sexually active after a while. It was, I'm thankful for my time with birth control, but it also was very eye-opening. What about you?
I did the same thing. I got oral contraceptive. I was not going to college. I was still in high school.
Yeah. You gotta take care of it when you gotta take care of it.
Yeah. But I was on it for a really long time, and I remember when I did get to a point when I was ready to get off, it was only because I had a break in health insurance, and I couldn't get it, and I couldn't afford to pay for it in full. So I went off of it, and I had an extreme reaction. I lost a ton of weight. My hair was falling out. And it was, my entire body just shifted, all from, because I had spent years on this hormone, and then all of a sudden I didn't wean off or anything. It was just gone.
Yeah.
And so it was a really rough time, because obviously, as women, our hair is so important to us, and obviously weight you can kind of cover with clothes or whatever. But I was trying all these different shampoos, trying to save my hair, and I've always had pretty good hair, so it was it was hard to go, I was literally just chunks and chunks coming out, and my hands in the shower were covered, and I was trying these different shampoos that were supposed to help, but it was making the roots of my hair sticky, and it was just a horrible time period coming off of it. So when I was able to get back on a form of birth control, I wanted something without hormones. So I decided to go with a copper IUD, and that was, I did not know what to expect walking in. I'm thinking, great, put this in me and we're good to go. 10 years, no problem.
And I'll just run out of here, have some sex.
It was not like that at all. Like it was, I remember my ex was in the room with me while they were doing it. And he said to me when we left, he's like, I felt like I just saw somebody get raped.
Yeah.
Literally, I hadn't had a baby and they have to pull open your cervix. So you're getting those like pregnancy cramps as if you're having a child because your cervix is being opened up. And then they put it in and it felt so weird. I remember even going home that night and my brain telling me to pull it out because it could tell like there was a foreign object inside of me. And I kept having this urge to like pull the string and take it out. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to today.
Yeah.
Almost 10 years later. And it's the best thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually had a really similar experience to you going off synthetic hormones and birth control, oral contraceptive. I had noticed myself, I ate really clean. I worked out all the time. I'm a slender person in general, that's just my body type. But I was noticing water weight in different places that I just was like, why is it here? And and not that it's wrong, but for me, I just didn't feel comfortable in that weight gain. So I was also traveling a lot for a job, and that was really fucking up my hormonal cycle, genuinely. Like, and it was because I was trying to take it at the same time. I would map out my time difference in different cities that I was in. I took care of it. I did, but your body just is so sensitive to that. And I was flying pretty much at least 2 to 3 weekends a month. So, and I was just traveling a lot. And, so I was getting, again, weight gain, my skin started breaking out again. And I just didn't feel like I was super happy on it. I was kind of getting breakthrough bleeding every now and then. And I was like, I'm done with this shit. So I made the decision, to go off as well. I was like, fuck this, I'm going off. I need a non-hormonal birth control. I read a lot about synthetic hormones. Again, not trashing them. I think they're a really fantastic invention in general, and it's helped a lot of women. But at that point in my life, I was like, no more. And I've experienced hair loss in my hair since then. It's been a year now since I've been off birth control. A little more actually. And I still...
Is it leveling out, or do you feel like it's still,
It's leveling out, and my skin has leveled out as well. I had a lot of breaking out right as soon as I got off of it too, even though I was breaking out towards the tail end, I was on it anyway. But yeah, I definitely noticed a lot of hair loss, which I already have fine hair. So that was like earth shattering for me as well. And I'm sure no one else noticed it in my life, but I did. And it was one of those things that I was like, it is an identity to a lot of women. And definitely to me, it's a comfort blanket to a certain extent. And so yeah, I was doing that. I lost a lot of weight. I did lose that water weight because my body was like, but then at the same time, I was like, oh, I'm losing too much weight. My body like shed so much, and I was already very tiny. So chose to go on the copper IUD as well, because that was my best option. Also, never had kids. I did plenty of research going into it. I knew this was my best option. My gynecologist did, however, thankfully I got to have multiple conversations with him, and he did recommend I do the hormonal one because it's easier as far as installation goes. But I was like, no, I'm not putting any synthetic hormones in me. He's like, I respect your choice. Let's do it. Flash forward to one of the most painful experiences I've ever had. I totally agree. My mom was in the room with me because shout out Meg, she's fantastic. Because I had just broken up with someone at that point. So it was funny because I was getting it at a point in time where I was like, am I going to be having sex?
Right.
Who knows? And I was kind of, and it was like, I'd rather have my bases covered, and I'd rather have a non-hormonal option doing that for me. So yeah, did that. You're exactly right. Painful. I never have felt any pain before like that. And I would say I have a pretty high threshold for pain. I've broken bones before, many a time. So it's interesting. So that was hard. And that night was one of the most painful nights too. It was just my body exactly was like contracting, and it was, you could tell my poor little uterus was like, bitch, get this shit out. What is this?
You knew that your uterus was really small, that your doctor said that, yeah.
Yes, I've told you this. And so for the listeners at home, my uterus apparently, is very small, as most women are, and it's nothing to do with sex. I don't want people being like, rah, 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 like anatomy.
What's your number?
Yeah, exactly. It is very small. So when he installed it, I don't know what other way to say other than installed it, but he did an ultrasound to show me where it was, right? And it was a little off skew. It was like to the left. And he was like, yeah, your uterus is just tiny and it's not gonna like flesh against the wall of your uterus. Like it's supposed to go right here, the T in this like cone shaped thing, right? And it was just a little off because it was so long, the like T part of the, I'm sorry, I'm giving like a diagram, but the T part of the IUD was just a little off, but it's still effective. And that's all that matters. And he was kind of like, it's just your anatomy. And so, yeah, I've told Ruth before, I experience heavier cramping on my left side too. And I think it's because more pressure is on that side of my uterus, which is wild. But again, I'm thankful for a non-hormonal option. Even though it was painful, I think it's also my best decision that I've made birth control wise as well, moving forward in my life. And I'm only on year 1. I'm only I'm like year and change that I've had it for.
You check the string?
I don't.
I haven't either.
Okay. So
I think I did at the very beginning, and I was like, because I was nervous about it, but then I feel super uncomfortable checking the string.
Which is such a good topic, which is great. Yeah. It's like, I totally the same. I'm like, I don't want to just shove my finger up all the time. Like, no, thank you. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, I love women that like feel so comfortable.
No, absolutely.
Listen, this is a whole other subject, but it's kind of the same. I have a Diva cup that has been sitting in my cabinet for a year that I want
to try it. Because I don't want to touch it afterwards. I don't want to.
No, I know. Well, it's the whole like fear of getting it stuck. And I've read so many stories that women have said that. They're like, my first fear was it getting stuck, not your finger, the Diva cup or something like that, But so many women once they
pulling it out and like it spilling, like I don't.
Yeah, they recommend doing it in the shower, but you don't always have that option if you're in public, depending on your boyfriend's house, what have you. So it's definitely interesting, but I don't check my string. I probably should. But one of my favorite parts about getting my IUD, my doctor is a man, which I was not necessarily very excited about, but he came highly recommended. And he told me, he was like, if your partner says anything about feeling the poke of the string, feeling the poke of the IUD, just tell him, what string? I was like, what? And he was like, most men don't have anatomy that goes that long. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it was just...
That's so funny. I have definitely heard that before. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. And so I know other women that have had it and they've had to get it like cut, either the string or even the IUD had to get shortened for certain partners that they've been with. But for the most part, ladies, most men is apparently what he was telling me. And I was like, I just thought it was comical that he told me to pretty much tell any partner that I'm with, like, you're not feeling anything. Which was like, I don't think I'd ever lie to anyone like that. But anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was very fun. Mm-hmm. More people should talk about this. Get out there and talk about birth control.
Yes. Talk about it. Talk to your friends. I've learned the most talking with my friends.
Absolutely. Well, then I think it's just like being open and honest and talking about the full experience of something. Yeah. Because like I've known other people that have had IUDs, but I don't think I've ever sat down and like asked about their experience and the insertion of it.
I think honestly, just to wrap this up, you were one of the first people that I knew that told me that you still had it, that I had talked to right after I had gotten it. And I was like, oh, how is it? You know, and you thankfully were able to give me a good review, and I felt so much more comfortable knowing someone I really love and trust had it as well. So totally share with your friends. I think
everybody just get the copper IUD.
This is sponsored by. No, I'm kidding. I love that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Adam Khalil. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I definitely want you to subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more content like this. But if this content had any value to you, click the like button as well.